Hello, beautiful entrepreneur. I am sitting on the floor of my office, so that means it's time for a Podcapet episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. One of the chilled, relaxed, a little bit more behind the scenes vibe kind of episodes, because I want to share with you 5 surprising things that contribute majorly to my business results. Some people might see these 5 things as like minuscule or weird, or could potentially actually be like challenges as a business owner, but they are major contributors. So I thought I'd share those with you. It's a really juicy little discussion. And as we go through this episode, I want you to start thinking about what would the equivalent be for you? What are the things that have a surprisingly strong impact on your business results? So this is episode number 424 of the Heart Centered Business Podcast, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/424. And I do have some juicy things to share with you today. So you want to go and check out those show notes. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money, and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. All right, I'm going to dive straight on into this one. So, number 1, you might be surprised to know that my business results are majorly supported by the fact that I have ADHD. I am neurodivergent. I have a brain that runs on a different operating system to other people. I have some big gaps in my executive function, right? I have a lot of executive dysfunction. But my ADHD is one of the reasons why I am a business owner. It's one of the reasons why I'm an entrepreneur. My brain has mega processing power. I am able to distill lots and lots of different disparate pieces of information and craft something that's really meaningful and really clear and precise. I see patterns in things where other people might not notice them. And I also think that because my brain seems to work really quickly, I work really well at pace. And that might be because if I don't stay focused on something and get it done really quickly, I end up not being able to finish it, right? It might be a coping mechanism from being ADHD, but it means as a business owner, I can get things done in 20 minutes that other people take a whole day to get done. In relation to some of my executive dysfunction, so I have object permanence. If I can't see something, it doesn't exist. So that means that it can be really challenging for me to remember things that I need to remember, right? So you might think, oh, well, that's a bit of a disadvantage as an entrepreneur, isn't it? But it also means that I'm able to get rid of distraction by moving things out of my viewpoint, right? So if I put the things that are important to me right in front of my face, if I have my business plan on my desk and I have my priority tasks in front of me, I can get myself into a state where I'm indistractable. I am indistractable because my registration renewal isn't in front of my face right now. It's not going to be bouncing around in my brain. I don't get distracted by the washing that isn't done because the washing is closed off in the cupboard and I can't see it, right? So in some ways, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, can be challenging. But it also means that I can design my office and my workday in a way that means I am super quick at getting stuff done. I am really effective. I get into hyper focus mode and I get things done in batches. So today I've recorded 6 podcast episodes already. This is the 6th episode I'm recording in a row. And I am in the zone today, right? I'll probably record a few more before I'm done. A few days ago, I sat down to make some slide decks for a course update that I'm doing. And I thought that I would sit down and just make the slide deck for one module. I ended up making the slide decks for 5 modules, and I did that in about 3 hours, and I was just hyper-focused, I was totally in the zone, and I was totally indistractable. That is a really big driver of the results in my business, because when I decide to do something, when I sit down, if I can get myself in the zone, I can do things at pace. I can do them much faster than other people. My brain just works that way. It absolutely loves running, sprinting, and then taking lots of long, nice stretches off. My body's the exact opposite. My body doesn't like to sprint. It likes to wander for long, long periods of time. My brain likes to sprint for short, sharp bursts and then have long periods of rest. So I want to say all of this, that I think my ADHD has been a big contributor, a major contributor to my business results. But I also just quickly want to say that I'm not someone who walks around saying ADHD is a superpower and there's no downside, because I do want to 100% state for the record that we live in a world that was built by neurotypical people for neurotypical people. So yes, as a business owner, I can create my business and the structure of my business, my planning processes and how I operate in a way that works for me. And I can really tap into some of those amazing superpowers that I have access to. I do not want to discount the impact that it has on me that I have that executive dysfunction and I struggle with being a functioning member of society sometimes. And I also really struggle with some of the responsibilities and other things that I need to do as a business owner. I get very frustrated when I see people, and sometimes it's neurodivergent people as well, but I see people sharing things on the internet around how neurodivergence is a superpower, and they talk about it without actually acknowledging that, yes, there are some things about the way that a neurodivergent brain works that means we can tap into some really amazing things and we have some amazing benefits to us, but it should always be caveated through the lens of, but we also acknowledge and understand that the lived experience of neurodivergent people is that this world was not built for us, and that to thrive and survive in the world, we often need to access a lot of extra supports, workarounds, and accommodations in order to be able to operate in a way that neurotypical people just naturally thrive at. So I wanted to share that I do think my neurodivergence has been majorly contributing to the results of my business, but always through that lens of understanding that it is not the typical way and it is not the way that the world is built, and it does come with a cost as well. Number 2, my health issues. So again, you might be surprised to hear me say my health issues have majorly contributed to my business results, and especially given that my business income has not been on the same growth trajectory in the last 3 years that it was on previously. Absolutely. I definitely know that I have had to majorly restrict what I commit to and what I do in my business and the time that I give to my business and all of those sorts of things because of the health issues that I've faced. But because I have been forced to significantly reduce the time that I give to my business, it means that I have to be more strategic. And in fact, this year, this calendar year, I will have turned over the same amount as I did in 2019, but I will have worked about 1/3 of the hours. So yes, I'm again not saying that I would wish these health issues on anyone, nor would I want anyone to feel the feelings that I've been feeling in my body for the last 3 years and the frustrations that I've had with my own health over the last 3 years. But I can see that experiencing those health issues has allowed me to dial into a whole nother level of being strategic and being efficient and productive. I've been talking about my ELF way of working, easy, lazy, fun, since well before I experienced the significant health issues that I have been facing since late 2020 and onwards, and then with my surgery in mid-2021. And so I was already someone who was very fixated on doing it in the shortest amount of time, do it the easy way, do it the lazy way, do it the fun way, right? And finding that really beautiful sweet spot of effort less, not effort none, right? But finding that space where I'm doing 20% of the work and getting 80% of the results. I'm growing and scaling by cutting stuff out of my to-do list, by being more focused on what is the most efficient and effective way for me to achieve my goals, right? I've loved all of that stuff for a very long time, but the big health stuff that I've faced, particularly since 2021, has definitely contributed a lot to my business results by, in essence, forcing my hand on being far leaner with my time, far more strategic with my energy, and far more focused on what I really want to do in the world as well. Number 3 of what has surprisingly contributed majorly to business results, pottery. So whilst pottery hasn't contributed majorly to my financial results in my sales of my pottery, I did sell out my first exhibition at the Heart Centre Business Conference in 2024. That was just a little story that I shared in a previous podcast episode. So I took up pottery in 2023. My friend Claire and I went to a wheel spinning class, a pottery class together over the course of 4 weeks. And I fell in love with doing pottery on the wheel. Claire never wants to do it again. That's fine. But I really fell in love with it. I became a member of the pottery studio and I started going very consistently. And pottery has been a really brilliant, exploratory, fun, creative process for me. One of the big things that pottery gives me is thinking time, because when you are trying to lift the edge of a bowl on a pottery wheel that's spinning around, you can't be distracted. You have to be focused and you have to be present and in the moment. And it really has given me this powerful feeling of like presence and groundedness. And then in pottery though, there's lots of time around the time on the wheel where you can kind of let your mind wander and you can kind of get into that thinking time as well. So like the preparing of the clay, when I'm painting my pieces, there's an involved tidy up process that's involved when I'm recycling my clay from all my mistakes. Like that's all really good thinking time for me. And often I'll leave the pottery studio and I have about a 20-minute drive home. And my 20-minute drive home is a 20-minute voice note of like dozens of ideas and content things that I want to do, revelations and insights and things that I want to share. And then I pop those into a transcription and then they go into my little toy box or they go into my content idea bank. And so pottery has been absolutely amazing for my business. And yes, I did, sell, I think 10 pieces at the Heart Centre Business Conference. I brought in probably $300, about $30 a piece, I reckon, probably less from those sales. So it hasn't been a major financial contribution that way, but it's contributed to my business results because I've had a lot more time to like recenter and ground and get present. And also a lot more thinking time where I feel like I have been really in the zone with new ideas for content, reorganizing some of the concepts and principles around my content. I've re-recorded some of my free trainings with improvements, and they were first ideated when I was cleaning up my pottery wheel. So pottery has been absolutely brilliant. And if you don't have hobbies and fun things to do outside your business, please prioritize that. Please give some time to it because honestly, it has made such a difference for me. Number 4, and this is not really going to surprise a lot of people, but I think you'll be surprised how much it's contributed to my business, and that is my stationery obsession. I am obsessed with new journals, Post-its, stickers, pens, coloured felt tip pens, crayons, organisers, desk organisers. I'm so obsessed with stationery. I got a new glue tape that you it's like a really high adhesive glue, but you use it like a whiteout tape, and just little things like that. It's really up-leveled my art journaling game, that glue tape, right? So I love finding like new little stationery things, and I just get very obsessive with stationery. Now, how on earth could an obsession with stationery contribute to business results? Isn't it just a distraction? Well, let me tell you a little story. When I lived on Kawana Island on the Sunshine Coast, we were very much big into long walks and long bike rides. I have an electric assist tricycle because #lazy, #easy. If I didn't have electric assist, I wouldn't get on the thing. And I used to ride my bike, my trike, or everywhere. It had a basket on the back, and Munchkin could sit in the little basket on the back. And so Davey and I would ride our bikes go on lots of biking adventures, as well as lots of long walks and all sorts of things when we lived down there. And we were about a 15-minute bike ride away from an Officeworks. And Officeworks is a large chain stationery supply store. It is what you think it is by the name, Officeworks, right? So Officeworks wasn't too far away from home, and I could ride my bike to Officeworks and go and browse the stationery, sniff the fresh pages of the journals and the planners. Oh my gosh, I'm getting like a stationery gasm just thinking about it. Look at all the coloured pens, and oh my gosh, so much fun, right? My favourite place in the world to just browse. And actually my niece Charlotte is the same, even from when she was very little. Whenever I'd say like we'd have a fun weekend together, or I'd be babysitting and I'd be like, what do you guys want to do? What are we going to get up to? Charlotte's favourite thing was to just go and wander the aisles of Officeworks. So, we are kindred spirits in that way. And one day I was on a bike ride with Davey, and we were a little detour away from Officeworks. And I said to him, hey, can we go in and just do a quick detour to Officeworks? I need to buy some Post-its. And he said, oh my gosh, you are always buying Post-its. How many Post-its could you possibly need? Like, do you really need more Post-its? And I was like, well, actually, for your information, the last time that I bought Post-its was before my last solo retreat. And on that solo retreat, on those Post-its, I mapped out my tasks and my plan for my last launch, which actually brought in $75,000 in sales. So I turned $20 worth of Post-its into $75,000 in sales. And I did that because I mapped everything out on all of those Post-its on the wall on that solo retreat. Ever since that day, whenever Davey and I go anywhere near anywhere that sells Post-its, Davey asks me every time, do you need new Post-its? Because he actually got to see the stationery through my eyes, that this obsession with stationery is actually part of, it kind of circles back to my ADHD, right? It's part of the adjustments and the way that I need to work in order to be effective with ADHD. If it is not in front of my face, it doesn't exist. And so stationery and journals and having coloured things on the wall and printing off my quarterly plan each quarter and having it right in front of me, putting my yearly plan up on an A1 giant laminated board on the office wall so that I can see my entire year at a glance, all of that is how I operate to maximize the results of my business. And it is stationery that allows me to create that interest. It's putting the stickers in my planner that makes me open my planner consistently. It's the same reason why progress art was so powerful at helping me to track my income every day. I knew I was avoiding my daily income tracking because I had money blocks, but I didn't know what they were. All I knew was I could track my income for a couple of weeks and then it would fall away. And it was putting it into something that was crafty, something that was colorful, and something that was in front of my face every day that actually helped me to keep that habit up daily and also notice where my resistance actually lay. So stationery has contributed to my business results in a major, major way. And then number 5, the final one, dogs. Dogs have contributed so much to the results of my business. So we have 2 dogs now. We have Munchkin, who is a rescue from Bali, and took us 6 years to get to Australia, by the way. And Betty, who is our new rescue. We got her just recently in August of 2024. And so we have our beautiful 2 rescue dogs, Munchkin and Betty. And every day we start our day with a walk. And we start our day with a walk because the dogs need it and they want it and they ask for it. And if we don't give them a walk, they're real rapscallions during the day, Betty especially, because at the moment she's only 9 months old and she has a lot of energy. And so ever since having Munchkin, ever since living with Munchkin, since we moved in together in New Zealand, we moved to New Zealand for our dog, if you haven't heard that story, in 2019. But the dogs are responsible for so much of my business results because I start my day with a walk, and that's exactly the perfect way for me to start my day. It helps me to have a clear mind. It helps me to connect in with Davey, who 99% of the time we all go for a walk together. It helps me to think about what's coming ahead for the day, process my feelings, talk about what I dreamt about the night before, and get into my body in a way that nothing else really does, the way that walking the dogs does. It allows me to be so present and so mindful. And yeah, there's just something really powerful about starting the day with walking the dogs. But also the dogs make me take a break, because if I've been sitting at my desk for hours and I haven't got up, they get restless as well, because both of the dogs sleep in my office as I work. And so they'll get restless after a couple of hours. So if I am not up and playing with them or letting them out or, moving my body, they will come and nudge me and they will come and remind me that it's time to get that body moving. And that is so good for my brain and it is so good for my business. Munchkin in particular does not like it when I'm working at my desk and it's dark outside. So she also enforces knock-off time, because if I'm sitting at my desk and it's dark outside, she will be sitting beside me and she'll press her wet little nose against my thigh every 10 seconds until I do my end of day routine, close down my laptop and put my planner on top of it and get up and actually get on with living my life and get out of the business. Additionally, actually, Munchkin is the reason why we started our auctions. So we actually ran the first ever auction in 2016 when we realized that we were going to need to bring Munchkin to Australia from Bali. So a quick summary, Munchkin was a street dog in Bali who adopted us. She basically harassed us and we had to take her in just for a short period of time. And then our neighbor was going to help us to find a home for her, which they never did. But we actually rehomed Munchkin 8 times in Bali. And the final time that we rehomed her was with an Australian woman who was from Perth. And we moved to New Zealand in 2016. And we thought we had left Munchkin behind to live with that person forever. We thought we had rehomed her. And that woman got hit by a truck whilst on her scooter and broke both of her hips and had to get airlifted back to Perth. And this was the 8th failed rehoming of Munchkin. And so we decided, right, clearly she's just meant to be our dog. So we are going to bring her back to Australia. And at the time, we estimated it would be about $10,000 for us to do that. It ended up being more than 7 times that amount. And it took us 6 years, but that's a whole nother story. So we thought it was going to be about $10,000, but we didn't have $10,000 in the bank because we had just upped and moved our lives over to New Zealand, set up a house, bought all the furniture that we needed, set up my office and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't have $10,000 to pay the agent to move her. So I decided that I would raise the money to do it by running an auction, and I would auction off packages to work with me and spots on some of my courses and programs to try and raise some of this money towards the $10,000. What ended up happening was we ended up with people reaching out to me and saying, well, you can auction off one of my website packages, which is normally $1,000, and you can just keep the money from whatever you get for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And so people started donating things for me to auction off, and I could keep the money towards rescuing Munchkin. And so we ended up with 74 people donating items, and the first ever auction was the Bring Munchkin Home auction, and it went for 2 days of me auctioning stuff on a Facebook Live because people had donated all these things. We ended up raising $12,000. So we donated $2,000 to Bali Animal Rescue Centre because we didn't need it, right? And then that is how the auctions began. But here's what happened. From people not getting the money for their auction items, so one of them was the person who sold a website. So she normally charged $1,000 for a 5-page website. On the auction, her item sold for $700. But from that auction, she got 6 other website builds within the next 6 months. People heard about her services through the auction, and so she ended up making over $10,000 in sales to people who had gone to the auction, and they'd heard about her through the auction. And so all of these stories started coming in from people who donated things in the auctions, and they're like, I made all these other sales. I had all these other customers. I've got all these new followers on my socials because of this auction. And so I decided, it was about 3 or 4 months later, I said, well, why don't I run the auction again? But we don't need to raise the money for Munchkin or anything now. So whoever puts stuff in the auction, they can just keep the money. They can just take the money from the person, right? So I'll auction it off for you, but you actually get the money. And part of the reason why the auctions worked so well was because I was doing the selling for the auction person who donated the auction item. So I'm very good at selling. I'm very good at explaining the value proposition of people's work. I'm very good at articulating why people need to buy that 6-session healing package with that amazing healer, or why people should be doing that Money Blocks course, or why everyone should actually get their social media review done by that person, right? So I'm very good at expressing the value of people's work and why it's so amazing and why it's so awesome. And so that is actually where the auctions actually came from, was from a dog, from me rescuing a dog from Bali and wanting to raise the money for it. So I have since 2016 now run at least 2 auctions every year. And those auctions have not only been responsible for huge cash injections for my business. The most recent one was a $35,000 cash injection for my own business from the items that I sold in the auction. But those auctions have been responsible for people starting their businesses and making their first $5,000 in sales. Those auctions have been responsible for people getting 10, 15 new customers in the 6 months following the auction. Those auctions have been responsible for people being able to listen to me explain what it is that they do and then update and improve their messaging to be more effective because they've actually got a new perspective on why their work is so valuable and they've heard me explain what it is that they do. So those dogs are responsible for so much growth in my business and so much money, not just for me, but also for my clients and the people who've participated in the auction from the community as well. So they are 5 surprising things that contribute majorly to my business results: ADHD, my significant health issues, particularly since 2021, pottery, my obsession with stationery, and my 2 beautiful dogs, Munchkin and Betty. I'd love to hear from you. What are yours? Let me know. What's something surprising that has contributed majorly to your business results? You can share that in any of the posts that you see sharing this podcast episode, or slide on into my DMs and let me know that you've been listening to episode number 424 of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And here's something that's really surprising that has majorly contributed to your business results as well. Now, I also want to just give a little shout out to the Heart Centered Business Planner, because with the ADHD stuff, the health stuff, prioritizing my pottery, my obsession with stationery and the way that I use it to plan, I want to share that with those of you who need a new way of working, planning, and being more productive as well. So whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, whether you love planning or you really resist planning, if you struggle with knowing what to focus on in your business, with implementing the big ideas and grand plans that you come up with, or if you struggle with creating a plan that you actually want to engage with and look at and keep front of mind and get it done, then I will also share in the show notes of today's episode a link to my free quarterly planning template and process that will walk you through a little short-term planning process, but also to the heart-centered business planning system, because I just know that for a lot of people listening to this, if you are really struggling with implementing, you're struggling with focus, you're struggling with prioritizing, you're struggling with, getting everything ticked off your to-do list, the Heart Centered Business Planning system is so magical, and you get a whole year to make it work for you and really adjust and adapt the system to what's going to work for you. But you also get a whole year of mentorship and support and accountability and revisiting and fresh starts if you're someone who falls off and you forget about it and you need to start over. The Heart Centered Business Planning System has all of that built in, and you get access to that for the whole year. So I'll pop a link to that in the show notes as well. All of that can be found at tashcorbin.com/424. Thank you so much for joining me for this Podcapet episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine.